Friend of the show and reporter for The Nation, Ken Klippenstein, is a bit of a FOIA hound, tracking down information that those in power don't want you to have. In this case, they really don't want you to have it because they're blocking his efforts to find these documents. So now he's taking them to court. Ken Klippenstein joins us now on the program.
Great to be back in the Thunderdome.
Good to be here. Good to have you here. And so you are actually suing the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in regards to them effectively stonewalling you, correct?
Yeah, that's right. When I do a lot of open records requests, FOIA is the federal one, but every state has its own interpretation of that. And as you pointed out, in theory, the law is great. Public records were generated by taxpayer dollars. They depend on the consent of the governed, so they belong to us. Pursuant to some exemptions for classified information, personal information, that kind of thing. The problem is that they found all sorts of ways to get around that and to not give us the records that belong to us, that we paid our tax dollars for, that we give them our consent to govern over us in exchange for, and that's not good, I think.
Yeah. So you're trying to get information in particular about what subject in this case?
In this case, it's DHS's Fusion Center affiliate. So this is a very interesting part of the national security world that isn't talked about very much. After 9/11, George Bush issued a series of executive orders, established the Department of Homeland Security. And part of that was also establishing these things called fusion centers. The idea is it's fusing national level intelligence between DHS and FBI and other agencies like that with local law enforcement. So you're sort of seeing this is kind of a parallel thrust towards giving local law enforcement more and more resources of the sort that we've seen reported for years now. I mean, they're getting DoD equipment from the military. They're literally getting stuff that was intended and earmarked for Afghanistan and Iraq and using domestically. Well, also, local law enforcement is getting intelligence that these very fancy three-letter agencies in the intelligence community have that they're getting shared with them. And I think that we should know what that intelligence is. And so when I submitted an open records request in Florida for their fusion centers intelligence, specifically with respect to the George Floyd protests, the other protests, all the protests happening this year, amid pandemic and everything, and anti-police brutality protests, they refused to give me anything. And so, we have these agencies working with these federal agencies that have, let's say, not great civil liberties histories. And so I'd like to know what it is they're getting from them and how they're using it. They won't say. So we took it to court with my attorney, Beth Borden. She has a Patreon that I would encourage people to consider supporting. Even just a few dollars helps a lot, because these cases don't actually cost an enormous amount of money. It's just that it does cost a little bit, and that ends up making it prohibitively time-consuming and expensive for activists. And unfortunately, then we're in a situation where only corporations can afford to litigate these things, whether it's big newspapers like the New York Times or just businesses that litigate these things for commercial purposes, and then the public doesn't get to find out what they want to know.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if people have been watching the Damage Report for some time, they know your track record and what you've been able to deliver. This is the way that that's done, and so it's great that you have legal representation that's looking into this particular case. Now, this isn't your first lawsuit. If we go way back to a couple weeks ago, there is another one, correct? Against, in this case, the Chicago Police Department.
That's right. I'm also suing the Chicago Police Department for the same records. I want to know what intelligence are they getting from the FBI, potentially DOD, all these other three-letter agencies, and how are they using that to track Black Lives Matter, to track the George Floyd protests? Same answer. Sorry, we can't give it to you. This is sensitive law enforcement information. Now, I'm not disputing that there's probably some of that in it, but to not give me anything, you at least give the person the piece of paper and black out, redact the portions that maybe are disclose confidential informants or sensitive law enforcement methods and techniques. But that's going to be a portion of the document. You don't just say, "Oh, we're not giving you anything." Come on, you can at least give me an entirely blacked out piece of paper. Where are we that I can't even get an entirely inked out document? I mean, that's what it used to be like, and it's not even like that anymore.
Yeah. No, look, I get the concern over Florida, but are you implying that Chicago police might have done something wrong in regards to these protests?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Chicago police history, I mean, you're being facetious, but they have a very ugly history with respect to, ethnic minorities, civil rights movement, so on and so forth. I mean, I would encourage people to just Google Fred Hampton and find out what happened there.
Yeah.
If you want to know a little bit about Chicago police history. So yeah, these concerns are not coming out of nowhere. I have guys in law enforcement telling me, look at this stuff, find out what's going on here. You're going to find something. And, they're always cagey in terms of what they'll tell you. But I'll say this, I've never had a FOIA lawsuit that wasn't found in my favor. I'm very confident that these will be. And so that money is going to go towards giving people these documents to tell them what the hell these agencies are doing.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, admittedly, probably a stupid question. So you've had lawsuits like this before where they've tried to block you or they've taken forever and like made it really slow. Right. Others have too. We don't know exactly how either or both of these are going to turn out, but based on your experience and the experience of other people in these sorts of situations, does this tend to be the sort of thing where the police are just being overly defensive and keeping their cards close to their chest? Or does this generally result in something that'll be at least relatively spicy?
Absolutely defensive. I mean, I wouldn't have taken it to court if I had any question about it, because if they find against you, you end up paying, in many cases, the police department's attorney fees. And we don't want to get in that situation. So this is something I'm very confident that we'll be able to win. And moreover, as you said, we have great laws on the books, but it's the implementation that is the problem. And so we have a de facto situation where they'll give you stuff if it's sufficiently innocuous and not going to embarrass them, but they'll either slow walk or just not give you things that they don't want out there. I mean, the problem is there's no oversight of these agencies other than the courts. There's no mechanism to hold them to account. Say, we're letting the fox run the hen house. They decide what gets disclosed from their own records. So what do people think is going to happen when that's the state of play?
Yeah. And by the way, for anybody watching, I mean, I know that this sort of topic hasn't necessarily been the biggest news story for a little while. We're in the wake of the election and everything. But bear in mind, like throughout this year, we've had drone, tracking of these protests. We've been having cops finding people, like going to find people in the streets and tearing them off the streets, shoving them, in the backs of vans and things like that. There have been any number of different abuses in these areas. So God only knows what a big city like Chicago could be hiding. So definitely something that people are going to want to support if they want to get to the bottom of that. The link is available there. We'll put it in the description as well. But as always, Ken, we appreciate the work that you continue to do, both in and out of the courtroom.
I really appreciate it, man. And I really appreciate all the donors. We're already starting to get things back. And without them, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So it's cool to see, maybe we're not in power, but there's a lot of people that are sympathetic to, what we want to get out there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thanks.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.